bonsoir from Paris. Welcome. Happy New Year. The bells are ringing just on time. Thank you for joining me in Paris tonight. It's a little breezy, but not too cold. Bonne année à tous. Welcome. Bienvenue. I thought what better way to start, what better place than right above the Seine River. Nothing says Paris quite like the Seine River. You'll recognize this bridge where I'm standing once you see this famous building. The Louvre, that's right. All right. So we have a nice little stroll planned today, and I'm going to get started. Our friends will catch up if they can figure out where the link is. You see Miss Eiffel in the distance here. I am standing on the Pont des Arts, a footbridge that's been given a lot of TLC recently. You can see that the old oak beams that were on the bridge are gone. They have replaced them with I think some sort of an exotic wood that is supposed to be weather resistant. The bicycles, all the foot traffic had really damaged the bridge, and so now we have this brand new, I don't know, can we call it pavement? So we are on le Pont des Arts. Welcome friends, bienvenue. And I think I'm going to take you on a stroll, and in fact, look at that. Look at Miss Eiffel. She is sparkling, twinkling in the distance. Bonne année à tous. Thank you for being here. Hey, Catherine, boy, you're brave, lady. You are down under and you are up already for the live stream. Thank you for being here, Catherine. In fact, now is a good time for me to thank my co-producers on this show, on this January 1st show, my patrons, the France with Véro patrons. And Catherine, I just talked to Catherine Barnett, was one of the very first people to join my Patreon program in April of 2020 at the start. It was in March of 2020 at the start of COVID. So thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, all of you who joined that early, and all of you who are still around supporting the small business of mine, enabling me to run those live tours and film all these videos in Paris and beyond. Lots of gorgeous views here. It's hard to to choose, but I'm going to try and do Paris justice in the dark. So it's 6 p.m. here. Like I said, about 50 Fahrenheit, so that's 10 Celsius or so. Bonne année, friends. Thank you for joining us. We are going to take a stroll on the left bank tonight, and I'll keep going for a little while, and then we will see how far we go. Now I'm showing you one of the many boats along the Seine that take visitors and locals on the Seine, and this is the Calife. You see the figure, the male figure on the bow of the boat. You can probably see it a little bit in the dark here. The Calife, I was on the boat a couple days ago with a friend of mine for a lovely lunch cruise, and they gave us the very best table, which is that first table here in the corner. The cruise was at least a couple of hours long. The food was very good and the service super friendly. So highly recommend the Calife. I think they'll probably go out tonight because I can see the tables are set. So one of many tour companies that offer meals on the Seine, lunch or dinner, but this is a good one. It gets the Véro seal of approval. The Institute, l'Institut, a massive building. I need to pan just to show you how large, how wide it is. This was originally a school created by Cardinal Mazarin a long, long time ago, and then it became this place where they have 5 major academies. I would describe it as saying a lot of French brains in the science world, in the arts, literature, And of course, one of the 5 famous academies is the Académie Française. You know, these people we refer to as immortals whose main mission in life is to protect the purity of the French language and to write an encyclopedia. I see my parents are here. Coucou papa, coucou maman. That's special. Bonjour Robert. Bonjour friends. I can see you. All right, let's take our little walk, shall we? And I know that many among you are going to recognize what we see on the way, but I thought it'd be more special that way. It would remind you of good times, and many among you I know are looking forward to returning to Paris. Here's the Calif again. You see it's a smaller boat, all wood. I think it was built in the 1920s or so, and I believe it was built in Belgium. So it's a lovely ride on that boat, and the food's quite decent, as I was saying. Oh, pardon, excusez-moi. Interrupting the photo op here. Pas grave, she said. It's okay, no problem. So here we are on the left bank, folks. We will be on the left bank for most of this walk. You see some bouquiniste stalls coming up. You know, there's a big controversy right now with the bouquiniste. The city of Paris wants to move them because of the upcoming Olympic Games for security reasons. The official reason is security. And of course, there's been a big uproar. And there's even a petition signed by almost 200,000 people saying that bouquinistes, which are part of Parisian heritage, which have been here for a really long time, should not be moved. So we will see what happens, but I know they did a test a few weeks ago and moved a few boxes to prove that it could be done without breaking them, because the people were saying they're going to get broken, those old boxes. And the used booksellers complained, but they put the boxes back and they proved that they could do it. So who knows what will happen eventually. Happy New Year, friends. Thank you for joining me and joining us. If I raise my arm a little, you can see the Louvre. Look at the length of the Louvre. This is the Denon wing. It goes all the way to the end over there where the Tuileries Gardens start. Some bouquinistes are open, which is incredible, on January 1st. Many are closed. And you can see that even if they still sell books, they also have to sell other things to survive. Lots of them are closed. A lot of younger people taking over the bouquinistes now, just as you see a lot of younger people taking over other businesses like boulangeries, bakeries, cafes and restaurants, so that's quite encouraging. Posters, anyone? So this is really part of Parisian life, and people are anxious about the boxes being moved and taken to a different location, maybe regroup them during the opening ceremony, but then they wonder how long it will be before they place them back. So all understandable, of course. On the other side here is the left bank behind all these buildings. The School of Fine Arts is nearby. Fine Arts are one of the academies inside the building I just showed you, the Institut de France, the Institute. Bonne année, I see your messages pop up. Bonne année, welcome, thank you for joining me today. Oh, here's a nice little spot here where we can look down at the Seine. The trees are enabling. It's easier in the winter, right? There are no leaves on the trees. Look at that. Here's a Parisian sight for you. It's not cold at all. If you keep walking, it's fine. It's just very humid. It feels humid to me. But like I said, 50 F, 9 or 10 Celsius, not too bad. For December, it's been unusually mild. I hope everybody's doing okay. I hope you had a great time last night, celebrating New Year's, the New Year, the way you wanted to, either with a big party or at a more leisurely place. I went to a show since I'm in Paris. So my friend Olivier Giraud, his very popular show how to become a Parisian in 1 hour. It was a lot of fun, like always. It wasn't my first time. I was happy to be able to chat with him and his lovely wife afterwards. And then I took it easy. It wasn't necessarily an early night. I was out late. But it was easy pace. Look at all the bikinis, they're really shut down, aren't they? So after the Pont des Arts, we come upon the Pont du Carrousel. A stone bridge, this one. Le Pont des Arts is actually pretty new in this current version. It was rebuilt completely in the 1980s. And it's not uncommon with all these Parisian bridges, about 37 of them downtown. Even if they existed a long time ago, they've been built and rebuilt, damaged by the Seine River floods, sometimes damaged by or just destroyed by the authorities for safety reasons. So a lot of them were worked upon heavily in the 19th century and often in the 20th as well, like this one coming up. Ah, he's closing shop for the day. See? This is how you close your shop when you're a bouquiniste. You just close that door and you put a little lock on it. Not a love lock, not a love lock, an actual lock. Traffic is pretty light because it's January 1st. People are tired, but also because a lot of Parisians are gone. It's a school vacation. So you don't see that much traffic, not too much honking either, fortunately. And we're still walking alongside the Louvre. It just keeps going. Former fortress built a long time ago in the Middle Ages to protect the entrance into Paris. Turned into a royal palace in the 14th century when the kings moved from the Ile de la Cité to the right bank. And eventually, world famous and world-class museum, which I know a lot of you have visited. Bit overwhelming, but well worth it. Okay, I'm gonna jaywalk. Don't tell anyone I did this. This is between us, okay? There we go. I never do this with tour groups. It might be dangerous. Okay, green. This time I can go. Gotta keep an eye out for the bikes. Pretty massive bridge, rebuilt in the 20th century. And the Louvre in the background. Hope this brings back memories for you. Lynn says these views never get old. Well, I agree, Lynn. That's why I chose this spot, because I figured, you know, the illuminations to start weren't that massive this year, so I thought I want a place where people can actually see something. And Paris shines by the river. I've always said it's one of the best ways to see Paris, those Seine River cruises. Walking along the quay is also a great way to do it, so that's why I chose this location. Look at this message. See what we were talking about? Some people are not happy. The Lord of the Olympic rings doesn't like to read. No to the expulsion of the bouquiniste. All right, now you know. Lots of messages in support of the bouquiniste. And on the left bank here, right by me, it's not very lit up, so I'm not really showing you the facades, but the camera can pick up on it. I think you can see pretty well. We have some nice real estate there along the quay. So this, you know, all these streets are named quay because they used to be quays. We had lots of ports alongside the Seine through the years. Nothing quite as refined as what we have now, but you get a picture of all these boats loading and unloading goods, and so all the different sections had different names. They were ports. And this quay here is called Quai Voltaire because the philosopher Voltaire, 18th century, died in a house that's right around the corner where that yellow light is over there on the left. But then they changed name, which is kind of fun. Oh, there you go. Lots of tourists in town right now. The boat is rather full. That's a pretty light. Bonjour, welcome if you just joined us. Very happy to have you here for our January 1st cruise. Cruising through Paris, not on the boat. More messages in support of the bouquiniste. Oh, this is a good one. Paris n'est plus une fête. Paris is not a feast anymore. That's a reference to Hemingway, of course. You can see some of the boxes are in pretty bad shape. And that explains why the bouquiniste don't want them moved. You see this one? It's pretty old. Anyway, we will keep up and see what happens with that, how it unfolds. There's still time until the opening ceremony at the end of July. The restaurant Voltaire marks the spot, that house where Voltaire died, actually. Right there. It's been interesting. On and off, I lived in Paris for 15 years? And I lived here for several decades, in the 80s and the 90s, then for 20 years as a tourist or frequent visitor when I lived in Seattle, Washington. And then I came back as a tour guide, so I've known Paris at very different times. And it's been interesting to see the big change in terms of the access that we have now to the waterfront, les quais, as we said. And this has been, for all the criticism against the current mayor, Anne Hidalgo, this has been one of the bigger changes that have come about in the last, I'd say, 10, 15, 20 years, is to give Parisians access to the water, which they didn't have in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, because after World War II, everything was about cars. And so you would have expressways on both sides of the Seine and cars everywhere. And so it was really hard. It was like people were cut off from the water. But Anne Hidalgo, the mayor, and her predecessor, Bertrand Delanoë, have banned the cars from the quay, have made sure that people could go down by the water to walk, to stroll, to exercise, to ride bikes. And that's a big improvement in the life of the city, whether you like the mayor or not. I'm going to stand on the other side here so you can see this beautiful Ferris wheel, which is in the Tuileries Gardens, like every year. There's a massive, I don't even know that they call this a Christmas market, a massive fair, I guess, in the Tuileries Gardens, right outside the Louvre. You were on it, Martha? I bet that was fun. Great photo ops from up there, I remember. Look at that. So this is right in the Tuileries Gardens, and the Tuileries Gardens essentially start right where the Louvre ends and go all the way to the Place de la Concorde. That's also a ride from the fair, so that gives you an idea of how big it is if you've never been here at Christmas time. The water is quite high, and I can see a lot of current. Now, we're not in flood conditions right now, fortunately, but you can tell it's been raining quite a bit. Oh, I'm glad you're enjoying the view, Marcy. All right, let's continue. See, if I went in this direction, you would be smack in the heart of the left bank. And we're going to essentially walk from the 6th through the 7th arrondissement. We're on the way to the 7th now. It's not too crowded. It was a lot more crowded earlier this week during the daytime. Maybe some people are sleeping off whatever champagne they enjoyed, bubbles they enjoyed yesterday. And we are getting extremely close to one of the landmarks in Paris, this building on the left here, which you all recognize. Let's see who can tell me the name first. What is this big building on the left there? Who knows? Who knows what it is? We've been there many, many times. But maybe it looks a little different at night. That's right. 5 points for Lynn. Orsay, the Orsay Museum. A favorite museum in Paris and around the world. Everybody loves Orsay. Thank you for joining us, Pamela. I appreciate it. I hope you're not too tired from after running home to watch this. You can catch the beginning later, the replay. It'll be on YouTube. Another tour boat. So yes, here we are, Orsay. Orsay, which used to be, as you know, a train station. But now a museum dedicated to art ranging from the 1840s, 1848, all the way to 1914, and of course, famous worldwide for its Impressionist and Post-Impressionist collections, the largest in the world. Typically on the 5th floor of the museum where everybody runs. They're having a great exhibit right now dedicated to Vincent van Gogh. My friend Nina would be proud. She's Dutch. She taught me, she's Danish, and she taught me how to say this. I'm not sure I'm saying it right. I'll call him Vincent. So Vincent's last month in Auvers-sur-Oise, and it's been an extremely popular exhibit. I know some of you have seen it. You've mentioned this in our patrons Facebook group. And it will be wrapping up, let's see, when does it wrap up? It started in, it will be wrapping up in April. Oh, it's not too bad, it's gonna last a while. Oh, right, yeah, it's gonna last a while, so that's good. There it is. So yeah, you can totally tell this was a train station. Incredible building, Orsay. La gare d'Orsay. So I don't know if you realize this when you click on that SNCF Connect app that enables many of you to travel around La Belle France in our great high-speed trains, the TGV. The SNCF, Société Nationale des Chemins de Fer, the public company that runs our railroad system, was not always there. And right before World War II, several private railroad companies came together, merged, and they created the SNCF. But until then, you actually had quite a few private railroad companies, and one of them was the Paris-Orléans company that associated with other smaller companies, and between them they ran a lot of the lines all the way to Paris and all of southwestern France. Now, the reason we have this beautiful train station here originally before the museum is because of the world fairs. You know, Paris has hosted many world fairs. In fact, Paris hosted 6 world fairs between 1848 and 1900. The most famous one was the 1900 one, and they knew they would get a lot of visitors. In fact, they got almost 51 million people in town. And so they needed to bring those visitors by train. So they worked on several train stations. Orsay was one of them, and then next door over there was another one, Les Invalides. But inside, I mean, you would agree that the... Well, I'm glad you found it, Sharon. I'm glad you found us. Welcome and Happy New Year. So yes, as I was saying, I think you would agree that once you're inside, the building really helps showcase the art. Because the art is not just paintings, it's sculptures, it's furniture, it's architecture, it's a fascinating museum, and really to be inside that, the high ceilings, it's quite something. It's a spectacular place. Now, of course, it eventually became a museum. That was in the 1980s. The president who started working on this was not Mitterrand, it was Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, his predecessor. But it's François Mitterrand, the socialist president, who completed the project. So part of this quay here is actually named after Valéry Giscard d'Estaing as a tribute to him, because he initiated the project of turning the Orsay train station, which had been closed and abandoned by then, into this incredible museum. One last peek. Now, as someone who lives in Tours in the Loire Valley, this is a special place for me because the gentleman who designed the facade of this magnificent building is known as Victor Laloux. Victor Laloux was born in Tours. He was a very renowned architect. And he did 3 spectacular buildings in Tours. And if you ever come and visit me for a private tour in my city in Tours, you will see that our gorgeous train station, which of course is a lot smaller than this facade, looks suspiciously like this one. That's because Victor Laloux designed the Tours train station as well as the Basilica and the Hotel de Ville. So he was quite renowned. So every time I walk past here, it's a connection to my home in the Loire Valley. Welcome if you just joined us. If you had a hard time finding the link, hopefully not, then you can watch the replay later. I will be sharing that everywhere. It's the same link, it'll work for the replay as well, as you know. Another boat down there, people are sitting down ready to enjoy a nice meal. And that happens a lot here along the left bank. It's a popular thing to do. And like I said before, you can see that les berges de Seine are now back to the public. They're back. No more cars. No more cars. There's a guy down there jogging in the middle of in the way. I can see him in the distance. So it starts here at Orsay and it goes all the way to the Pont de l'Alma by the Eiffel Tower. And essentially this entire section is for pedestrians and bikes now. So this is one of the exciting developments that came from Paris in the last 2 decades, I'd say. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask me. If I see your messages pop up, I can answer them. It's more fun if it's interactive, I know. I have so many stories to tell, it's always hard to choose one. Here's the front of the museum right here. It's a little dark, but you can see some animals here, some large statues of animals. And these have been rescued from one of the World Fairs we were mentioning, the 1878 World Fair. So they have recycled, in a way. Non merci, madame. It might be fun to ride one of these things. I don't know how well that would work. On the left here is one of the best deals and best surprises in Paris, probably. A lot of people go to Orsay, which is a fascinating museum, but it's not a cheap one. While across the street there is a free museum dedicated to the Legion of Honor. The Legion of Honor is the highest distinction you can get in France, both as a civilian or as a member of the military. It's a recognition of what you've done for the nation, and it was created by Napoleon Bonaparte before he became emperor. And they eventually opened a museum here in the 20th century, but like in many museums in Paris, this was set up inside a former hôtel particulier. So we're not talking about a hotel, we're talking about a former private mansion. In this case, the Hôtel de Salm, S-A-L-M. This one was created in the 18th century, I believe, for a German aristocrat who ended up being guillotined during the revolution. And you can visit, if you book a tour, there are days of the week where you can actually visit the building, and it's quite magnificent inside. So you get a free museum with the Legion of Honor, but you also get to visit an incredible place. Now, if it looks familiar, if the shape of the building looks a little familiar, it's because allegedly this is the building that inspired Thomas Jefferson's property in Virginia called Monticello. Virginia, I've been there many years ago. I know you have too. Gorgeous place. And Thomas Jefferson is a little bit ahead of us. His statue is over there. He was an ambassador to Paris, ambassador of the United States in Paris before the French Revolution. He was instrumental in convincing King Louis XVI to finance the American Revolution. And he was also, of course, President of the United States at about the time Napoleon was emperor here. So Thomas Jefferson has his statue up there, and he's kind of looking ahead. I think he's looking at the house, personally. On the right-hand side is a great footbridge. It's named after a gentleman named Leopold Sédar Senghor. And this is a footbridge that's actually rather new. It was inaugurated right before the year 2000, so probably 1998, 1999. And it's great because it connects you from the left bank and Orsay to the Tuileries Gardens. This is a walk that I often take with my tour members when I take groups to the Orsay Museum. I take them for a stroll through the Tuileries Gardens, and then we come here, and you can see the pavement, or I don't know if you say that for a bridge, is similar to what we saw over there on the Pont des Arts. It's wood. It's been redone several times, and of course there was a bridge here, you know, when it was destroyed and rebuilt and destroyed, and eventually they did this footbridge. Now this gentleman it's named after was born in Senegal, but he had very strong ties with France. He was actually educated in France. He was a writer, a poet, became a politician in France. He was also a French literature teacher in Tours, my city, in a high school. Eventually, when Senegal was not a French colony anymore, became a republic, an independent republic. He was the first president of the Republic of Senegal from the 60s through the 90s. So he's remembered with this walkway here. All right, so we continue our walk on the left bank. Dong, dong, dong. The lights are making a little bit of noise here. Yeah, the surface on the footbridge has been updated. I think they had issues. It was really slippery in the rain the first time they did it a few years ago. And they had to replace it eventually. There were issues with it. So the first installation wasn't quite successful and they did it again. Maybe that's why you remember a different one. But it's been a while. More péniches or barges alongside the river. You know, a lot of them now have been converted into bars and restaurants. It's a big thing to do in Paris, but these look like they've actually lived in. Those are homes. Now, typically we go to the Bassin de l'Arsenal, which is at the Bastille, to see people living on boats. You can stay there for several months on your boat. But you do find them along the Seine in other locations. Now, it's really dark on the other side, so I'm not showing you the real estate. Massive buildings, beautiful buildings, but it's kind of dark. So I think the best views are on this side now. You can still see the Tuileries Gardens and the rides, you see. Hope everybody's doing fine and enjoying this little stroll. Recently in the fall, we did a couple of meetups in Paris, and it was a lot of fun to meet some of my patrons. Some of you are here tonight. It was so lovely to see you in person. Some of you I've seen several times, which is even better. I'll try and do that in 2024 as well. And it's kind of fun that you also meet in your part of the world, wherever that may be. All right. It's nice actually, it's quiet now. Not as crowded. Haha, Karen, Pau is a lovely town, or city I should say. How many people live in Pau, Karen? So for you, those of you who don't know, it's a lovely, lovely place in southwestern France. You've been there for, what, about a year now? I'm glad you get to visit Paris with us. Even virtually. Works great, right? It worked during the lockdowns and it still does. Though people don't have as much time to watch them now, all those tours. About 80,000 people. That's pretty big. That's pretty big. 8 months today. Well, happy anniversary. 8 months, almost a year. It's a beautiful part of France. You see the rooftop here? Who recognizes this rooftop? What is it across from us on the right bank? Can you tell me what it is? The Tuileries Gardens are right here, with the fairgrounds, closer to the Rue de Rivoli. And what's that lit up rooftop here? Ah, your best decision ever. Well, I'm glad you think that way. I know you took the time to investigate and look for the perfect place. Ah, that's not quite the Grand Palais yet. Any idea? The Orangerie, that's right. That's right. The Orangerie, because we're coming upon the Place de la Concorde with the obelisk, which is in the dark. So yes, this is the Orangerie, which is so close to Orsay. You see, you can see both. It's really easy. You just walk through the park to the Tuileries Gardens, you get on the footbridge and boom, you are at Orsay, which is really easy. The Orangerie, of course, people go to see Monet's Nymphéas in French, or water lilies in English. And they're always very sad when they can't get in. You do need to book a time ahead of time. It's always crowded. But there's also much, much more to see there. There's another floor where you can see so many more artists, so don't forget to do that when you go. And if you did miss the Orangerie because it's booked, don't forget the Marmottan Monet Museum in the 16th arrondissement. It is the largest collection of Monet's work in the world, because when he died in Giverny in Normandy, his surviving son bequeathed the entire collection to the state, and so it all ended up essentially at the Marmottan Monet. So it's a nice thing to do. Oh, I'm glad. I agree with you, Sharon. You know, there's always some good coming out of a tough situation, and some really strong friendships came out of COVID. And certainly technology helped. We're always prompt to blame technology, but Zoom really helped. The virtual tours really helped. Oh my goodness, what's going on there? Somebody's stuck with a siren. A chance for me to stop and show you this incredible building here. Look at that. This is, all of this was built at the beginning of the 20th. Oh, here they come. Police Nationale. Oh, apparently on their way on a mission somewhere. Stuck. Just after I said traffic was light, it's not. So this building is incredible. I think it was built in the 1900s, 1903 or so. But it's funny because it's not really Art Nouveau style. I mean, there are elements of the Art Nouveau, but there are also some very geometric lines. So I don't know what's going on in there or who lives there now, but that's a pretty massive piece of real estate. All right, back to the Seine. And you see, we are exactly... I hope he goes away. He is going away. Okay, now you can see les berges de Seine, where people can really enjoy themselves and be close to the water. If you come to Paris, and you probably did, in the 70s, 80s, it was impossible to do that. There would be traffic here, and it was always polluted and loud. Ah, I see some of you are discussing your travel plans. Well, of course, with the Olympic Games going on now, the question is, when do you come next year? We had an interesting chat about that, a private Zoom call with patrons a few months ago. Very tricky decision to make because of prices in the first place. You're right, that's an authentic Paris sound, isn't it? The siren. All right, look at that. We're coming upon another bridge here. Le Pont de la Concorde. Just like the square on the other side here. And this is that massive square where the obelisk stands in the center. And they're starting to stage more and more events there. They did that during the Rugby World Cup, and some people are starting to grumble about it. Hey MJ, good to see you. Happy New Year. So, on the left-hand side, what do we have here? The French National Assembly, also known as the Palais Bourbon, because a lot of the real estate in this section of the 7th arrondissement were essentially private mansions or palaces, I mean very fancy places. And eventually the government took over because they didn't belong to anyone anymore. And so they have fancy names like Palais this, and so this was the Palais Bourbon, and it's the National Assembly. You know, it's the second chamber of the French legislative body. You have the Senate as well, and you all know it's inside the Luxembourg Garden in the former palace built by a queen. Merci beaucoup.
De rien.
They waited kindly, and I told them to go forward. Yeah, so it's an interesting building because it looks like kind of like a temple, doesn't it? Kind of neoclassic architecture. There's a French flag, of course, at the very top. It's an official building. But what's really fun is that to know is that it's supposed to mirror another building that faces it directly across the Seine on the right bank. And that building is a church now. It's called the Madeleine Church. So I'm trying to see the Madeleine Church on the other side, but it looks like it's not lit up. If it were lit up, I'm going to stand on the bridge in a second so you can see what I'm talking about. Voila. If the church were lit up over there on the other end of the square, you would see that it's the exact same style as the Palais Bourbon, as the National Assembly. So always in Paris, the symmetry aspect, trying to build things so they match, so they look good in a straight line, so you have perspective. It's a very big deal in Paris and in France in general. So le pont des Invalides, not le pont des Invalides, le pont de la Concorde has changed names just like the square. Originally that square was named after Louis XV. He's the one who developed a lot of major roads in France and in Paris and this bridge. And after that it became Le Pont de la Révolution, just like the square was named after the French Revolution when they had a guillotine in the middle. And then they named the bridge after Louis XVI after he was beheaded as a tribute, I guess. And eventually they said, okay, well, we need to find a more positive name for this bridge. And they came up, and the square, and they came up with the name Concorde, which is a much more positive name. Look at this green boat. These are the bateaux mouches. These are the ones I use with my tour groups typically. Much bigger boats. In the distance, that is the building you referred to earlier, the Grand Palais. That's where we're headed. We're headed to that other bridge next. And I'll probably wrap up right around that section. But here's a great view of the Palais Bourbon, the National Assembly. Look at that. So if you follow this road on this street on the left here, it's Boulevard Saint-Germain, and that takes you all the way into the heart of Saint-Germain-des-Prés, a very popular neighborhood as well. I see boats on the other side, on the right bank, more péniche barges docked. People probably live on those. It's not a bad night, it's not cold at all. Look at all the people walking. Well, not all the people walking. So this really, I remember this as an expressway. When I lived in Paris in the 80s, there would be cars, like traffic was fierce along this road here. And now look at it. People can just use it. So that's a good thing that came out, I think, of the last 2 decades in Paris, a little bit more even. I see they're still chatting about their travel plans. That's a fun thing you can do on those live strolls. Chat with people, let you know. Or get to know them if you don't. I missed that actually. Remember when we used to live stream every Saturday? Through the lockdowns, 2020, 2021, every single Saturday I took you out on Facebook. But we went to more out of the way places then. I took you to the former villages of Paris, all around Paris, that were eventually incorporated into arrondissement. This tonight is more of a monumental itinerary. Everybody knows, everybody has experienced, so hopefully it feels familiar. The name of the boat I was on yesterday is the Caliph, C-A-L-I-F-E. That's an old name for a Muslim leader, I believe. That's what they used to call them. Catherine says, those were the days. Yeah, the days when we couldn't leave our apartment here in Paris for more than an hour a day, and we had to use permission slips. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs kind of peeks through the trees here. It's in the dark, but I see it. There's a flag on top of it. So back next to the Palais Bourbon and the National Assembly, lots and lots of official buildings. Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so forth. Oh, you're welcome, Marcel. Glad I can do this. I'm glad a lot of my patrons are here. Thank you all for your support, like always. You know, it means a lot, and it helps me run. Coucou. Thought I'd say a little hello. I haven't yet. So if somebody's new on this stroll, it's probably there. Doesn't she ever pop up? Well, she doesn't pop up very often, so enjoy it while it lasts. Typically at the beginning and at the end. I'm making an exception tonight, why not? Because I can. So it's great to see you all, and to read your messages. Just commemorate, like remember the good old days of live streaming in Paris and beyond. And beyond. Remember in the summer of 2020, between the two lockdowns, I took you all over Western France. I don't know how many towns and cities I did in just 3 or 4 weeks. And I was sharing videos and photos, and it was fun. I agree with Catherine, there were some good sides, good things about it. Oh, need to show you what's going on here. Voila. So when we were saying a lot of the quays now have barges too, for fun. So this is a very popular one. It's called Rosa Bonheur, and it's named after that female artist from the 19th century. And you may know the Rosa Bonheur, the guinguette they have in the lovely Parc des Buttes Chaumont in northern Paris. And this is more of a guinguette because the guinguette is supposed to have the atmosphere, like countryside atmosphere, or by the water. So this is kind of a trendy place. They make food, they serve food. It's closed now, I can tell. But this is a hop-in place on the weekends and in the evenings, especially in the summer. And next to it is another boat that's completely in the dark right now. But this is a popular place to come and have a drink or some munchies. They do dancing too. There are people dancing. They have bands. I can't believe people are already exercising. That's impressive. Well done, sir. Well done. That's the spirit. Hey, we're not done yet. I'm glad you're enjoying it, but I will be wrapping up shortly from this bridge coming up in the distance. Had to finish on a beautiful bridge, and this is probably the most famous bridge of them all. Miss Eiffel is also popping up. Do you see her? In the left corner there. So we'll be wrapping up in a few minutes. On the left here is another train station that played a big part during the 1900 World Fair. It's La Gare des Invalides. So we saw La Gare d'Orsay, which is now the museum, Orsay Museum, but La Gare des Invalides. And today they use it for different things. And there's the RER Sea line in there as well. But it was a big deal during the 1900 World Fair, which was by far and large the largest one, the most impressive fair that Paris hosted. Is it really your favorite bridge? We'll try and give you a good view then. It's not super lit up. I mean, the candelabras are here, thank goodness. Look at that. All right. On the left-hand side, as I reach the entrance of the bridge, I will show you in the distance Les Invalides. Les Invalides, Invalides meaning crippled people, crippled soldiers, as it turns out. This is a place that was built for Louis XIV, who spent most of his 72-year reign fighting wars. You see it in the distance there? And so he built this hospital for his wounded soldiers, the least he could do, really. And it's still working today. It's still a functioning hospital for wounded veterans. But most people go there because it is the Army Museum and because you have under that golden dome, Napoleon is buried. Hey Avi, welcome. Better late than never. You can watch the replay later. It'll be fun, just as fun. So we are approaching, still on the Quai d'Orsay. This is the name of the section of the street we're on. And look at the massive entrance to that bridge. And that bridge is called Alexander III. And it was inaugurated for the 1900 World Fair, and it was a tribute to the friendship between France and Russia. And it is the son of Alexander III, Nicholas II, who came to Paris for the inauguration. But to this day, it's one of the most spectacular bridges in Paris. We've been going for almost 50 minutes, so I'll be wrapping up shortly. You probably have things to do. Look at the size of this thing. Look at that. This is crazy. It says 1897, Pont Alexandre III, and then it says 1900. So it took 3 years to build. typical candelabra on the bridge. Pretty spectacular, I'd say. And of course, Paris at your feet. Paris at your feet. On both sides, we're leaving now officially the left bank where most of the stroll was. I see Les Invalides in the distance back there, Napoleon sleeping under the Golden Dome. In the distance on that side is the fairgrounds of the Tuileries Gardens we passed earlier. Another tour boat. Ah, this is the bateau bus, the bus on the water. Now, for those of you who may have missed it, I also did impromptu live streams on Facebook this week. I took you to Notre Dame and gave you an update on what's been going on, some interesting developments in the last few weeks. And then yesterday I took you back to the Marais to meet my friends at Bring Friends Home, that store I helped promote between the lockdowns to help the ladies. And they were lovely. They were right in the middle of the inventory, but they were gracious as always. We had a good time. So you can catch both those replays on France with Véro on Facebook. And then tonight, of course, our big virtual tour. Oh, thank you, Patty. I am looking forward to more virtual or in-person adventures as well in 2024. So I'm going to wrap up as I get closer to the Grand Palais because it's in the dark. Now, you all know that we are really in the 1900 World Fair Central right now, between the Orsay train station, Les Invalides train station, the bridge, and then on both sides of this magnificent avenue, the Grand Palais and the Petit Palais, which is the Museum of Fine Arts, which is free and a great place to see. But you know, the Grand Palais has been under restoration since 2021. And they set up a temporary structure by the Champ de Mars, by the Eiffel Tower for a few years. But they're making great progress. I can't show you because it's really dark, but I saw yesterday that they're making excellent progress and it will reopen for the Olympic Games. And I believe the fencing events will be taking place there. But just like for Notre Dame, not all of the restoration or rebuilding will be completed then. So they will finish working on it. But that big room with the huge glass dome that you see here, they call it the nave, will be open for those events. So people will be able to go inside the Grand Palais again, which is quite exciting, I think. So things are moving along nicely in Paris in spite of all the construction, the scaffolding locals and visitors have to put up with. Let's see. It was 19 years ago, but I remember walking across a bridge. Ah, see? Well, I'm glad it brought you back. There you go, friends. The Seine behind me, the Ferris wheel of the Tuileries Gardens behind me. I just want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. Some of you may have had a hard time finding the link. I did share it on Facebook as well, but it's okay. You can watch the replay. It'll be just as fun. And I hope to see you soon for our next live stream. Until then, I'm going to walk around a little bit more and then head home and then eventually head back to the Loire Valley on Wednesday where I'll be seeing my friends and get started on preparing all my tours for this season. There's a lot of work coming up. So thank you for joining me tonight. One last peek and I will show you Mademoiselle Eiffel. Why don't we wrap up with this? Look at that. Just like in the good old day, a live stream stroll in Paris with my favorite people. Thank you, friends. Thank you for still being here by my side. If you are new and watching the replay later, all my tours are free. My virtual tours are all free on my YouTube channel, but they are tip supported. So donations are gratefully accepted. I have a virtual tip jar. All that information will be in the video notes. The best way to support this business is to join the fun people you've seen commenting here tonight, my patrons, France with Véro. We call ourselves La Bande de Véro, Véro's Posse, and we have a lot of fun interacting virtually or in person throughout the year. We even have our own private Facebook group. So do consider joining us on Patreon, patreon.com/France with Véro. For now, friends, merci beaucoup, bonne année, and I will be seeing you soon in Paris or somewhere else. À bientôt!